What's up, everybody? I'm David Hain. Welcome to episode 243 of the A to D from Addict to Disciple podcast, and welcome back to Wacky Wednesday, as today we'll have two more chapters from the From Ashes to Destiny curriculum. If you enjoy this, please like, subscribe, follow, and share the link with your friends. If you'd like to get the curriculum of From Ashes to Destiny, you can get it on paperback or ebook in Amazon. Thanks for joining us on episode 243 of the A to D Addict to Disciple podcast, entitled An Email from Debbie. And this is the first story from chapter 4 of phase 2 of the Heart of an Addict from the From Ashes to Destiny curriculum. And this chapter is entitled The Heart in Need of Forgiveness. Here goes. An email excerpt from someone I'll call Debbie. As you know, addicts come in all shapes and sizes and from all walks of life. Perplexing to everyone that knew of my addiction was that I had never done a drug until I was 35. Stunned even me. See, Pastor Dave, I was the cheerleader and homecoming queen, president of my class. Supposedly, people wanted to be me. I actually had the nerve to get a divorce because my husband had smoked pot. Me! Then it all went bad when I met a guy who was a recovering addict, 7 years of prison, so he was clean. In no way am I blaming that guy for my addiction, but he'd been there. So I became a heroin addict at age 35. Plain insanity. I had migraines, and this guy kept telling me dope would help. Now, I'm no dummy. I knew it was dangerous stuff, but I had no idea what it even looked like. Guess what? Men will give or buy you anything to ease your pain. I know that now. He used to just buy it and give it to me. I didn't have to go with him or to have the money. It was always just there. Meanwhile, after about 6 months, this guy tried dope. Looking back, I think he was doing it all along. One day he was sick, and I just needed to ask him, where do I go? I was scared senseless getting off the K&A, an elevated train stop in the Kensington section of Philadelphia. You know the rest. It became second nature. I was traipsing around Kensington at all hours. So it ended up I hurt everyone I love. My dad never looked at me the same way again. He called me a rotten junkie. I was a mother. How dare I? I caused the man so much stress. At one point, I was trying to get into detox, and I had to wait until the next morning. I called my brother, who lives close by the detox hospital, and asked if I could stay the night. He told me I could sleep in the park. Man, that hit me then. I was a cheap, creepy, ugly, skinny junkie. A friend of mine who let me kick at his apartment, I robbed him. The day I walked out of detox, there were 9 of us released all at once. One guy had a car. It was clear they were going to cop. I walked away. One guy yelled to me he had money for me. I came home and just kept going. So here I am. Somewhere in me, I knew I was still alive when I would be copping in the alley. Children would be in their little swimming pools down in the Badlands, and I would just look and think what a piece of crap I was. I mean, nobody should live in that mess and chaos. Nobody. Walking back to the L, I would feel awful because I invaded a neighborhood where people were just like me, only raised different, raised in poverty. God was with me in those times because, thank the Lord, I was not harmed. That right there is a miracle. Sure. Awesome story by Debbie as she shared a lot of her life. So I've got some discussion questions. Hopefully you're prepared. And again, this chapter is entitled The Heart in Need of Forgiveness. And it's going to go into lots of aspects of forgiveness. We're going to look at sort of the attitude of self-forgiveness. Discussion questions to set us up. The story started out with Debbie saying, number one, addiction comes in all shapes and sizes, all walks of life. Remember, she was a cheerleader and president of her class. I want to ask you, when did the successful part of your life start to turn? Number two, Debbie's life all went bad when she met a guy with a past. And she said, I'm not blaming him. I'm no dummy. I want to ask you, who do you blame for starting your addiction? Debbie started at age 35 and called it plain insanity. Do you agree? Number three, Debbie said, men will give or buy you anything to ease your pain. I want you to take that concept and ask you, what similar statements could you say? He or she will do anything to ... Number four, who would buy for you when you got sick? Debbie talked about going out and buying heroin for the guy she was living with when he got sick, meaning he needed more drugs and he was starting withdrawal. So, who would buy for you when you got sick? And how did you feel about adding to the addiction which was destroying a neighborhood? Debbie talked about how she was really stirred that, the kids in the neighborhood playing in their inflatable swimming pools and things were just the same as her, just they grew up in poverty and she didn't. Number five, Debbie talked about how she hurt her father and how he called her a no-good junkie and how she stole from people and wasn't welcome at her brother's house. Who did you hurt in your addiction? Did you hurt everyone you loved? And how did you hurt them? Number six, Debbie talked about the guy was probably using the whole time after he got out of prison for 7 years. So I want to ask you, what causes addicts to go right back to using immediately after treatment or release from prison? Number seven, Debbie had her aha moment when she said, somewhere inside of me, I knew I was still alive. What's your aha moment? Have you had a moment where you knew, hold it, I'm still alive inside. This is starting to bother me, this neighborhood. This is just death. I can feel it creeping in. And I really am not happy with me contributing to the downfall of the neighborhood. So I'm still alive. Maybe I need to ask for help. Okay? Number 8. How do you believe Debbie was able to forgive herself? Right? She didn't start using until she was 35. She started using sort of knowing what she was doing, but rationalizing she needed something for her migraines and minimizing, what was going on before it was too late. And so I want to ask you, how do you think Debbie could forgive herself for the radical change she had from being the person that everyone wanted to be like to the person that everyone just saw as a skinny, rotten, smelly, creepy, no good junkie, to use some of her words? And then I want to ask you, what steps must you take to forgive yourself? Do you need to, and we'll look back at the questions, do you need to forgive yourself for walking away from the successful part or your part in that radical change? Do you need to forgive yourself for being gullible for the person who got you started using? Do you need to forgive yourself for just being a fool to believe a man and what he told you, or a woman and what she told you, and just realizing drugs were coming along, but maybe you convinced yourself it was love and you just minimized it that way? Or do you need to forgive yourself for what you did to destroy a neighborhood that's being overrun by addiction? Do you need to forgive yourself for hurting everyone you loved in your addiction? Do you need to forgive yourself for being one of those guys who did go to treatment or did go to prison only to pick up within an hour or a day after you got out? And finally, do you need to forgive yourself for ignoring an aha moment where you should have grabbed a hold of it and come right? Thanks for listening to this episode of the A to D from Addict to Disciple podcast. I hope you were stirred by it. If so, feel free to contact me by email at davidfroma2d@gmail.com. Go to my website, www.froma2d.org, and click on the contact page, or you leave your comments on whatever platform you're listening to. Keep listening to future podcasts. And as always, stay safe and stay resilient.